So let's get some insight into what today's events mean. Of course, we do know that the DSS is saying they did not have in their custody one of the protesters who was being reported to have been arrested by the security agencies. And we do now know the arrests that have been made and the stern warning coming from the military. Some of the sites that you see today, one include the hijack of a police armored personal vehicle of the Nigerian police force. So you see the protesters driving it around town. Let's get some insight into the implication of this and how we can end some of this violence in the bar. I'm being joined by Mr. Bulama Bukati, who is a scholar of extreme violence. He joins us virtually from London. Thank you so much indeed, Mr. Bukati, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me, Sean.
Perhaps what came out today in the news is the flying of the Russian flag. And in some quarters, we are hearing that the Russian embassy had come out to say, no, we are not here. We do not know what is going on. And I'm worried because in London, where you are, there are also violent protests happening in London. And it does look like the flame of protest is all over the place, and you can see some of the agitation that people are asking for good governance, and people are agitated by one thing or the other. But the dimension and the dynamics in the Nigerian context cause for concern, isn't it?
It does call for concern. But to start with, let's be clear that peaceful protest is a constitutional right that is guaranteed to each and every Nigerian. And wherever Nigerians are not satisfied with government policy or are not happy with how governments at the federal or the state or the local government levels are conducting their affairs, they can come out and protest. But protest has to be peaceful, it has to be orderly, it has to be organized. And therefore, vandalism, violence, and looting is not protest, it is criminal, it is terrorist, it is a terroristic activity that every Nigerian must shun away from. And of course, like you said, Shaun, the use of Russian flag is something we started to observe a few days ago with a small number of individuals, and then it started to spread inside Kano, and now it has spread across the country. And as I have said previously in some of my written posts, I think this is a dangerous trend. It is a dangerous trend because, number one, holding another country's flag during protests and calling for that country to invade your country or to come to your country is potentially criminal. It is potentially treason, because if you look at Section 37 of the Criminal Code Act, especially the one that is applicable in Abuja, but there are similar sections or identical sections in the Criminal Code that is applicable in Southern Nigeria and the Penal Code that is applicable in Northern Nigeria. All of them make treason an offense. And in each of them, they define treason and then continue to say everything that is treason under English law is treason in Nigeria. And under English law, being disloyal to one's country and carrying another country's flag, calling for your own country to be invaded, can potentially be treasonous. We know under democratic Nigeria, the law regarding treason has been watered down by the Court of Appeal in a landmark case. But in spite of that, the watering down mostly deals with the person of the president or threatening or activities that are related to the person of the president. But activities that are related to the corporate existence of Nigeria as a nation is treason. And we know that treason is punishable by death under Nigeria's law. Those protesters that are being unscrupulously or unknowingly or unconsciously that may be used by unscrupulous elements in the society or people with dark agenda against our country must be careful. They must know what to do and what not to do during protests, and carrying another country's flag is definitely not something that is allowed in a peaceful protest.
The action or the act of, I can imagine that those who are carrying those flags are not unaware of their actions or the reasons behind their actions. Can you fathom why they are carrying this flag in particular? Why Russian flags?
I mean, there are many theories. So the place where it started originally in Kano is a place that is where there are many Nigerians who are conducting their peaceful businesses in Nigeria. But then one impact of that is that because there are many people from Niger there, young people from that area might have been discussing what has happened in Niger Republic over the past 1 year when we saw a military take over, and then we saw the Nigerian government moving towards Russia. People might have been observing what happened in Mali and Burkina Faso and the deployment of Russian mercenaries, for example, to places like Mali. And people might have been observing the war in Ukraine and how Western powers and the Russian government and its allies are continuing to tussle to fight out their war there. So people have been observing that. And so it is possible that some people saw that, and they saw that perhaps the best way to threaten the Nigerian government, to call the Nigerian government's attention, is to carry a flag that will scare it. And this is something I have seen several people who carry the flag say on Facebook or write somewhere, that their aim is to hold the attention of the government by raising those flags. But another theory has it that it is possible that there are some elements, possibly not from Nigeria, that have infiltrated these sentiments and are the ones spreading those flags. Because, Sean, when you look at those who are carrying these flags, they are not sophisticated individuals. Many of them, even from the way they appear and from the way they talk, you know that they did not go to school. They are not very educated people. And so you would start to wonder whether they even know what they are doing, or whether it is someone else that is using them. But it is also possible that they just saw vogue, they just saw something that is fashionable, and they took it. But even if you want to go with that theory, Sean, you have to ask yourself, who is giving them the money to buy the materials they are using to make these flags? Because we are talking about hunger in Nigeria, and it is real. People are hungry. Many people are unable to afford 1 square meal a day. So where are they getting the money to buy the textile materials, to pay the tailors to make to make these flags for them? It is possible that there are some people who are making it, because we know some of these children that are carrying it do not have the money to purchase it after it has been made, or to purchase the material and make it. And that's why I align myself with the call of the military and the police and the government, that people can protest, but they have to do it peacefully. And carrying another country's flag is definitely a red zone. It is a no-go area.
Give us an understanding, because there are those who will tell you that, yes, Russia has always been accused of some kind of some kind of secret manipulation. The American election of about 2 terms ago, clearly we saw some Americans come out to say Russia was behind some of the secret manipulation of the democratic process. And those who will say these blatant and obvious move of carrying the Russian flag is not very much in the style that is being deployed or employed in those kind of manipulation that Russia has always been linked to. Do you have any dimension or any explanation into why this could be some kind of scenario playing out in Nigeria, and considering also the influence of Russia in our neighborhoods, in some of the neighboring countries on the continent? And could that also play any role? And if Russia comes out to say, we do not know anything about what is happening in your country, there are those who will tell you, do not believe them. But you play around within, you play within the intelligence community. Should the government really be worried or bothered about these actions?
Look, Sean, I don't know if there is a direct link with Russia, but what I am sure about is that there may be individuals who are allies or sympathetic to Russia that may be pushing this agenda. And you are right to point out social media, because social media is something that has been used by actors, including Russia, on the African continent to roll out a campaign of influence, of disinformation, of conspiracy theories in order to either bolster regimes they want to support or to undermine systems and countries they do not support. And so it is possible that this is happening. It is on record that there are countries in Africa where Russia interfered in their election using influencers and social media and other kinds of malign influence on the ground. And you spoke about the American case, but also the case of several countries in Europe where there are allegations, at least, that Russia has interfered in their political or social systems. So it is possible because it has played out elsewhere, and there are credible evidence to show that, yes, it was Russia that was responsible either directly or indirectly. To your point that what we see in Nigeria is not exactly the way we saw in other countries, especially in the West, disinformation and these kinds of malign campaigns mostly are packaged in a way to suit a particular circumstance. And so what is rolled out in the United States may not necessarily be workable or suitable for Nigeria. And those who roll out this campaign are very intelligent people who do their own research and then use the best methods they think is possible to roll out in a particular geography or circumstance or situation. But what I hope, and this is just a hope, is that those young Nigerians that are carrying these flags are unsuspecting Nigerians who do not know what they are doing. And now that we are warning them, and now that the government is warning them, and now that everyone is speaking against it, I hope and pray they would listen and they will take caution and they will stop using those flags.
Listen to what we played that tape earlier, what the spokesperson of the Nigerian police force said about the arrest that had been made. 681 was made after the second day. On the third day, we understand that 681 persons have been arrested by the Nigerian police, but more arrests are said to have been done. But you see some kind of coalition and some kind of working together, a handshake amongst the different security agencies. In fact, their spokespersons are meeting. It does look like there is a coming together, which looks like a new dimension into the synergy that a lot of people have always asked for within the Nigerian security space. But if you are to look at that vis-a-vis intelligence around these past few days, how do you assess the whole thing?
So, to be honest, if you looked at the behavior of the Nigerian military, the Nigerian army, as far as the information I have, acted commendably during these protests. They did not harass or intimidate protesters as far as we know from the reports we see. They acted professionally, and I commend them for that. But showing when it comes to the Nigeria police force, they fell short of their standards. They did not act professionally. And the numbers of arrests you are talking about, we are not clear of all the circumstances in which those arrests were made. But there is credible information, including videos of some of the protesters shot by the Nigeria police who are individuals that should not be shot. The Nigeria police use disproportionate force, unreasonable force where force should not be used, and they shot live bullet on protesters who should not be shot. There are circumstances where there is no even need to use tear gas, but the Nigeria police used live bullets and they killed protesters. And that is a condemnable act, and I condemn it and call on all well-meaning Nigerians to condemn it. Because as I said, the right to protest is a constitutionally guaranteed right. The constitution that made the president today, the same constitution that made the army today, the same constitution that guaranteed the police force its powers and functions, it is the same constitution that guaranteed Nigerians the right to protest. And we have seen even where people were protesting peacefully, the police used force against them, unreasonable force. And there were circumstances where there were skirmishes, where there were problems. But instead of the police to de-escalate the matter, they escalated the situation by attacking protesters. And I think that is not something that should be allowed. And the president and the various state governments where protesters were killed or injured have to must set up commissions of inquiry, judicial commissions of inquiry, to investigate what happened during those protests, especially where there were loss of life, in order for those police officers to be brought to justice and be punished according to law. But on the other hand, we also have to look at the protesters. I did mention previously that violence, vandalism, and looting is unknown to protest, and these are criminal activities. And anywhere and everywhere where a protester damages another person's property or attacks people who shouldn't, who are conducting their normal business of life, or attack police officers, they must be arrested and investigated and prosecuted. There are people who might have violated the law amongst protesters, but their punishment is not death by being shot by police officers. What the law provides is for them to be arrested, investigated, and prosecuted. Unfortunately, that is not what the Nigeria Police Force is doing right now in many circumstances. They are shooting and killing people. They are shooting and injuring people. Shaun, you mentioned the United Kingdom and the riots that are going on in the United Kingdom right now. It is not protest, by the way, in the United Kingdom. It is full-fledged riot by people who wanted to riot against a particular community they hate. And it is something that has to be tackled. But what did the police do in the United Kingdom? They arrested and have already started arraigning in court some of those who got involved or who instigated or who participated in the riots. They did not kill anyone. And no Nigerian protester should have been killed by the police. And I think the federal government, the National Human Rights Commission, must investigate this matter. The various governments where this happened must investigate this matter.
Mr. Bukati, there are some response coming from the Nigerian police. Of course, they released a statement saying they did not kill anyone. And they are also saying that the incidents where people have died were not due to the police shooting at them. But you look at what is obvious that we can see. We do not have tapes where police shot at anyone, but we could see where tear gas are being used against protesters. Are those, is this kind of global best practice to use tear gas if the police think that the protester or the protester is not in the right place, based on the court order that was obtained in Lagos, in Ogun, in the FCT, that have restricted the protester to a place? Should the police use tear gas at all? And at what point, if they are based on best global practice, if they are allowed to do so, at what point can they utilize or deploy it?
Shaun, you and I and many of our viewers know the process of court. If the police is saying we are using tear gas because these people violated a court order, they should tell us that using tear gas is the process when an individual violates a court order. The normal legal procedure when an individual violates a court order is for that person to be arrested and arraigned before a court for contempt of court. And if the police wanted to use tear gas, or they wanted to know whether using tear gas in this circumstance is right, they should have applied to the court. At the same time, when they applied for the order to restrict the protest, they should have asked the court to also give them an injunction or an order, or to allow them or to permit them to use tear gas where the court order was violated. They didn't do that. And using tear gas is not the normal process in a democratic country, in a country that respects rule of law. Of course, there are circumstances where the police is allowed to use tear gas, especially where there are mobs that are on the verge of committing a crime or to overpower them. But that wasn't what we saw in places like Abuja. As far as we know, in places like Abuja, it was peaceful protests by people. Some of them have blocked roads, and the police force started using tear gas on them and even live bullet to disperse them. And I think that's not in tandem with the rules of engagement of the Nigeria police force. It is not in alignment with our legal process, and it is certainly a violation of our law. And I think the police force, to your point that it is denying that any protester has been shot, one of the things that tarnishes the image of the Nigeria police force is this denial in the face of facts. Because, Chewun, we saw the videos, and some of these videos have been corroborated by sources on the ground. They are credible. The police shooting and killing protesters in places like Kano, at Kurna Babalai. You have the bodies of the people going all around with bullet wounds, people who have died. There are videos of police officers threatening protesters with death in Kano and of police officers shooting protesters. And I think it is demeaning of the rank and status of a police officer, of the rank of the Inspector General of Police, to deny those incidents when we can see facts that are proving them. I think in order, if they want to respect their profession and they want to show Nigerians that they are a force that respects the rule of law and they don't cover for criminals, and those criminals or those who abuse their powers amongst the police don't belong to them, they should acknowledge what happened, they should investigate it, and they should punish those police officers that were involved. If they did that, Nigerians will be convinced that these were rogue elements amongst the police. But if the Nigeria police force wants to cover for these people, in spite of the hard evidence that is on the ground everywhere and that will continue to come out over the next few days, then people will believe that these were not rogue elements. These were true representatives and agents of the Nigeria police force acting under the authority and with the permission of the force.
Let's take a break, everyone. But when we come back, you should be asking, as a Nigerian, where are all the monies that have been disbursed? President Bola Tinubu said in his speech yesterday that monies have been disbursed to help alleviate the poverty of Nigerians. They have been disbursed and to the state. Well, there are other initiatives that the president said that have also been activated. But where are these? Mr. Femi Falana had written, and I'm going to read part of what he said to you after this break. And I'll allow next guest on the program to weigh in on that. Stay with me, everyone. We'll be right back.